Welcome to Sarah Has Questions. We have a good one today. We're talking about gas, burps, farts, and everything in between. And we have some burning listener questions that I just can't wait to ask. So I have lots of questions and I have no dignity left, so I'm going to ask them all. So let's get into it. I'm Sarah King, and I have a lot of questions. What exactly happens when you orgasm physically? Will popping a knuckle or a joint give us arthritis? What can we learn from our poop? The size of your body doesn't necessarily indicate your measure of health. Yes. And what are your thoughts on that? Cleansing. Do we need to do anything special to our nether regions? In this show, I get to ask all these questions to WakeMed doctors who happen to know everything about everything. Sarah Has Questions is a production of Capital Broadcasting Company and Mix 101.5. It's presented by WakeMed. So today we have a gastrointestinal physician's assistant named Jordan Meaton with us. Hi, welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Then we're going to talk burps and farts today. We all do it, and
That's right.
Some people blame it on elephants. Some people blame it on, ducks, but really it's us. And we're going to get to the bottom of why it happens. Okay. So let's just start from the beginning. Where's all this air? We're going to start with burps first. Let's start at the top half of our body. All right. Where is all this gas coming from?
Well, every time we swallow, eat anything, a little bit of air always goes down through the esophagus and down into the stomach. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, when we burp it out, it's the air from the stomach that's coming up.
Okay, most of the time?
Most of the time, yes.
Where else could it be coming from?
Well, it could be coming from air that actually doesn't get all the way down to the stomach and is actually coming from the esophagus.
Oh, and can you feel it when that happens? Like, can you feel that it didn't make it all the way down to your belly, or is it just something that happens and we don't even notice it?
Well, typically, the type of air that's coming straight from the esophagus is when we're eating too quickly, and the air just doesn't have time to get all the way down there. And if we're eating too fast, it tends to come back up quick. Yeah.
And that's why in China it is a compliment to burp after a meal, because you were so hungry and you liked it so much. I don't even know if that's true. I apologize if that's not true. But
I can't comment on that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, me neither, but I said it anyway. Where does the burp sound come from?
The burp sound? Well, that's a good question. So I don't know if I have an actual medical answer for that one.
Okay.
I'm guessing it would come from just from the vibration of the air moving up through the esophagus and out the mouth.
Shaking stuff. Yeah, it's like a personal earthquake.
Yeah.
And can you burp, why do some people burp so much more than others?
Well, typically, the average person will burp probably at least 10 to 20 times a day.
Really?
Usually it's not usually necessarily an audible one.
It's one of those little, you beat your chest a little bit.
It's probably something that you don't even feel or even necessarily know is happening.
Oh, interesting.
It's our body naturally kind of vents the air from the stomach out. Occasionally you do hear it. So some people, though, do belch more than others.
I can think of a few right off the top of my head.
And it's a lot of time, it can have to do with diet. But really a lot of things that can increase belching is eating quickly, smoking.
Smoking? Why smoking?
Well, it just it disrupts the digestive system. It's not really I don't know of any particular scientific chemical issue that happens when you smoke, but it is seen that folks that do smoke have increased belching.
Interesting. I wonder. So we're not the science isn't clear on why it's happening, though.
Not from what I've.
But you mentioned that it does disrupt the digestion. How is it disrupting digestion?
And it's perhaps that was a little bit of a maybe not the best way to describe it. I guess from what I've seen is that smoking increases risks of just about everything.
It's real bad for you.
Yes, and that along with the known effects on your lungs and cardiovascular system, it also affects the gastrointestinal system. So diseases like acid reflux, all sorts of GI pathologies like cancer and you name it, smoking will increase the risks of that.
Got it.
And based on studies they've done of people when they've been studying belching, and they've seen that folks that do smoke have an increased risk of all that.
Can burping or belching, which I believe is the medical term belching.
Well, actually, it's eructation.
Ooh, eructation.
Yeah.
Can eructation signify a disease sometimes?
In a way, yes. There are some very common example that I see, gastroesophageal reflux disease, oftentimes referred to as GERD.
Okay.
A lot of folks that will report increased belching, and they oftentimes attribute that to underlying reflux disease. Now, an actual pathological burping or is really just when the belching just interferes with your daily life.
Yeah, I've heard that before. When it affects your quality of life, then it's a problem.
And that's quite rare. It's people that even sense that they are belching more than others, or they think they're belching more than they should. They tend to still fall within that range of normal frequency.
They're just on the high end.
Either on the high end, or they just notice it more.
Sometimes you get that thought in your head, and it just makes you notice things more.
Sure
does chewing gum and using straws cause you to belch more?
So, chewing gum, yes. The more swallowing that you're doing while you're chewing the gum,
that makes sense.
Where it gets down. Straws, not. I haven't seen any information on that that suggests that would do it.
Okay. Are there foods that trigger burps?
Yes. One that would be pretty. Most people would probably think of as carbonated beverages.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, that's one of the main ones.
Yeah,
there.
Makes sense. You're swallowing gas.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. There's oftentimes there are a variety of different foods and food groups that are associated with increased gas in the digestive system. Oftentimes that's flatulence, though.
Oh, yeah. We'll get there in a minute. Yeah. We're at the top of the chain now.
Yes. But and not everybody gets affected the same way by a lot of these foods.
Okay.
So some foods that are associated with increased gas are lactose. They're wheat or wheat germ, whole grains, that type of thing. And pork.
Pork?
Yep.
But not beef or chicken?
Well, not necessarily, no.
Okay.
And then there's a number of different vegetables.
Probably broccoli.
Broccoli is one of them. Cauliflower, garlic, onions.
Oh, yeah?
All these.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, those sound like all the things that take a little more time to digest as well. Or more difficult to digest, I should say. Can burping signify an intolerance?
Not necessarily. Intolerance, I guess, is a subjective term.
Oh, okay.
If you do not wish to have any type of if any type of gas is going to disrupt you, then sure, having increased gas would be intolerance.
It's all about that quality of life.
Yeah, yes. But as you know, many people seem to eat them just fine.
Yeah, that's true, and they don't care.
Yes, yeah.
My brother. I didn't say that. How come sometimes you get gas caught in your chest? It feels like it hurts. Like babies will have this happen to them, where you have like a big bubble of air in your chest. Like I often, when that happens to my kid or when it happens to me, I'll drink a warm soda to try to get it out. What's happening there?
So that sensation you're talking about, is that like more of a sensation of air feeling trapped in your chest, or is it something that is...
When I burp, I feel better.
Okay. Well, that would most likely just be, in that case, increased gas, either in the stomach or even just starting to come out of the stomach or in the esophagus. And if you sense it there, if it's pressing on the esophagus there or the stomach, that could hurt.
So
Yeah, so just normal gas.
Oh, it's just normal. There's nothing going on there. It's like, I just don't understand why the valve doesn't let up. You're just like, you feel like you want to beat your chest. Like, get out of me.
Well, and you know what? Yeah, it's there's oftentimes, though, the esophagus connecting the stomach to your mouth and throat. It's not necessarily just a big open pipe. It's usually There's a whole lot of important things in our neck and chest, so everything's pretty packed together, pretty tight. So things have to open up to allow for the air to come up.
Oh, I see. Well, that's
So
interesting.
it doesn't just come up immediately.
Okay, and then last burp question, which is alcohol. Does it play a role in burping?
Well, well, certainly if it's carbonated, that would certainly
beer.
do it.
Yeah.
And as far as just causing extraordinary belching, not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Now alcohol itself does increase risk of a number of different GI pathologies, but which may in turn then cause you to have to feel the belching a little more, but not necessarily from what I've seen itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've covered the top half. Yeah. Now it's time to go to the bottom half. We're going to talk about farts, or what's the medical term for farts?
Flatulence.
Flatus.
Yes.
Ooh, flatus. And tell me the burp one again.
Eructation.
Oh, God. I love these words. There's a lot of points in Scrabble. Okay, so now we're on the opposite end of things. What causes the gas to build up down there?
Okay, well, so now as far as gas in our digestive system, we swallow oxygen and nitrogen from the air around us, and that can pass through the digestive system, not just through the stomach, but also through the intestines. Mm-hmm. Now, the other gases that are most commonly found in the GI tract there's methane.
Okay.
All right. And there's also hydrogen. Mm-hmm. All right. And a lot of these, the methane is actually produced from the bacteria that's in our digestive system.
Okay.
The small and large intestine. So a lot of these gases are either absorbed by the bacteria and then excreted out. And so the gas comes from, I guess, the atmosphere. We swallow some of it, and the other is bacteria. That's, I guess, the short, simple answer to your question.
Okay, I like it. And what foods make us gassy?
Well, a lot of the ones that we had mentioned before. So there's numerous different vegetables: onions, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage.
Mm-hmm. Are they called cruciferous?
Cruciferous? I think that could be. I don't know.
We'll go with it. We'll go with it.
Yes. And let's see. Then there's what were the other ones there?
Oh, you said that it was. Well, chewing gum can do it. Carbonated beverages could do it. Do fatty foods make us go?
Yes, they can. Also, pork is another big one.
Yeah, you mentioned pork before, and it's so funny that you picked that one meat out of all the meats available.
Well, and that's because they actually, I did do a little bit of research before I came here, and the pork is actually associated with increased production of sulfur in the bowel tract, and that's actually what causes most flatus to smell.
Oh, we're going to get to that. I have so many questions.
Yes.
Okay. So and you said lactose as well. Why is lactose? Because I have to say I am lactose intolerant.
Yes.
So this is a personal question for me. So please take your time.
Okay, I'll try. Yes. All right. So yes, lactose is another common food associated with increased gas, and it's really not necessarily something that our own body produces. It's the bacteria in our guts that when we don't process lactose, the way they process it causes increased gas.
I see. Okay. Yes. So from what I understand, it's like the bacteria is working extra hard to try to digest whatever like the lactose for me, and so that in doing so produces extra gas because they're working extra hard. Is that right?
I think that sounds right to me. Yes.
Oh, it does. Okay, yes. Great. Look at me. Why am I sometimes bloated and I can't release the gas?
Well, bloating. Oftentimes bloating is that. I think from. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Do you mean that sensation of just feeling full and feeling like just
distended?
Yeah, feeling distended. Yeah. So, oftentimes, if there's a few things that can cause that sensation. One is actually increased gas volume. In your bowels. Most people tend to have a pretty steady amount of gas within their digestive tract. But if let's say if your bowels aren't moving very quickly or as quickly as they should, if they've slowed down for whatever reason, that can cause a sensation of distension and cause bloating. If you're eating certain foods that cause you increased gas, that can certainly cause that sensation, the bloating sensation.
Okay.
So there's a variety of things that it could be.
Yeah, okay. So I have a couple questions. First of all, back to anatomy real quick.
Sure.
So I know you have your rectum, you have your colon. Where are the bowels? What is a bowel?
So bowel is essentially your small intestine or your large intestine.
Oh.
That's what
So
I'm
it's the same
referring
thing,
to.
just a different word.
In a way, yes. It's just a different way of categorizing it. Yes. I think.
Okay.
So there's small intestine we sometimes refer to as your small bowel.
Okay.
Large bowel, large intestine.
Oh.
Yes. And then there's just after the large intestine is the rectum and then the anus.
Okay. And so then why does the gas feel like it's stuck? Why won't it come out?
Well, like I'd kind of mentioned before, it just takes time for your body to move those things through.
Okay.
There's quite a lot of length in your small intestine and some degree to your large intestine as well, and it just takes time for it to for those muscles in the small intestine and large intestine to contract and move that gas through.
And are all people's small and large intestine lengthwise the same?
I'm sure there are some minor variations, but
Mostly?
for the most part, yes.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this earlier, but I want to delve into it a little further. Why are some farts smelly and some are not?
Well,
this is the meat of the crux of the podcast right here.
Yes. Well, so it is the main chemical that causes that smelly component of flatus is sulfur.
Sulfur. And
Yes.
so if your food contains sulfur, you're going to pay for it later.
Well, it's really not if the food contains sulfur. It's really the bacteria in your intestines as they digest your food and help you digest the food and process it. They produce sulfur.
Okay.
So again, I'm going to blame the bacteria.
Okay, bacteria. I mean, I'm glad that they're there.
Yes.
And here's one that I'm just going to ask it because I do want to know, how come some farts are hot and some farts are not? Because you have the same body temperature throughout your body, so why can you feel the heat sometimes?
You know, I have to say, these were some fun questions to look up.
I should have cued Robert Palmer in that moment. Feel the heat.
You could please continue.
No, I'm good. I'm done.
So now, with my extensive research and extensive Googling, I could not actually find anything specifically about the heat, how the sensation of heat versus cool of fart like that. So my best guess is just that if the component, depending on the density and the components of the gas, you probably feel it a little more. You know what? A little denser
after
gas
spicy
may
food,
have a little,
You know, in my house, we call it, I'm just going to say it, we call it the ring sting.
Oh,
Anyway, that's all of my questions.
Okay.
You did well.
Oh, all right.
Okay, great. Now I have listener questions.
Oh, boy.
And these get spicy. First of all, sometimes I experience painful bloating. If I want to know what food caused it, how far should I go back and look? Is bloating caused by what I ate 20 minutes ago or like three hours ago?
Well, in short, it could be either.
Oh, that's
really,
not helpful.
it's if you're trying to figure out and isolate foods that affect you as far as gas, best bet would be to try to first eliminate all those potential causative agents. There's a
For
whole,
how long?
Well, essentially as long as you can, but probably at least a day.
Okay.
And then, a lot of times it can take some material up to 2-3 days to pass through the full digestive
So
system.
like 3
colon and
days.
all
Give
that.
it a 3-day fast on
Yeah.
whatever you think it might be.
and then slowly start reintroducing the foods and see which one affects you.
Okay.
And maybe multiple, maybe none of them.
Yeah, we got to do it one at a time or else you're never going to know.
That's right.
Okay, number 2. My husband farts a lot. Thanks, listener. Is there a male or female component to gas?
So no, it's really it's primarily the bacteria in your guts and the food you eat and the food you feed them.
So if you're eating a lot of, if you happen to have a gaseous nether region, can you take things like probiotics and whatnot, and do you find those to be helpful?
So probiotics are...
Which is a whole other podcast, I realize.
Yes, yeah, that is. That's a whole series probably. So I get that question a lot. It's a great one. In short, probiotics, there's not a whole lot of science behind their efficacy for most GI pathologies.
Oh.
There's one very small area that we don't need to get into that it's shown to essentially help improve symptoms. But when patients come and ask me that, I'm upfront with them and tell them that just what I told you. There's not a whole lot of science behind it yet. They're working on it.
Yeah.
And, it may one day prove to be, they may find some good information to help treat underlying, different GI pathologies.
Yeah, because there's lots of things they say they help with.
But from what I've seen, they don't hurt. So if you find one that helps you, a lot of patients swear by them.
Okay.
And so I say go for it, or try it if you want to.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Sometimes when you burp, you can taste the food you just ate. Sometimes it's just air. Why is that?
I think that'd probably be because of the odor from the food that you ate coming back up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This is a long one, and it feels contentious, and a marriage may be at stake here.
Oh, boy.
My husband and I have an ongoing disagreement about the purpose of Gas-X and similar over-the-counter medications. He thinks it's supposed to stop you from passing gas. I think it's to decrease painful bloating gas by any means necessary, which could mean it makes you pass more gas after taking it. Who's right? Do you understand that question?
I think I do. And so most gas is produced by the bacteria in our digestive tract.
Yes.
Gas-X does not inhibit that. It doesn't act on the bacteria or necessarily inhibit their production of gas.
Uh-huh.
What it's supposed to do, and the efficacy of it is really not proven, I have to say. But it's
newsflash.
But if you go by symptoms, if it
helps you, it helps you.
If it helps you,
placebo effect is strong sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, so what Gas-X does is it actually reduces the surface tension of these gas bubbles. So in short, just making them I guess a poor way to describe it would be smaller, but makes them easier to pass through, and it would prevent theoretically the bloating. Or,
the accumulation.
Yes, it makes it easier to pass through, and as opposed to building up in the digestive
Gotcha.
tract, causing, for the description purposes, like a big bubble in your intestine, it would help just diffuse it and allow it to pass through. So it doesn't actually prevent gas from accumulating. It's just supposed to make it easier to pass through. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very informative. Thank you. All right, well, I think that's all. I learned a lot, and I am curious to see the probiotic studies, because you hear all about that all the time, and you can spend some serious cash on those.
Oh, yes, you certainly can. And I get that question a lot, so
I bet you do.
I'm usually checking my resources semi-frequently.
Okay, great. Well, if you learn anything, please let me know. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I love that I have a podcast where I can ask the burning questions. Why are some farts hot? With a straight face, or at least I tried to. I hope you got all your questions answered about gas. Jordan Meaton was my guest today. He works with gastroenterology at WakeMed, and you can find out more about the services at wakemed.org. We love listener questions, and if you have a question or a topic for a future episode, let us know at wralfm.com/Sarah Has Questions. See you next time.